So, think back to 1985. There was this, well, a single sales letter was mailed out in this totally plain white envelope.
Oh, yeah, the classic.
Right. And it didn't use like any manipulative trickery at all, no sensationalized, clickbait
Yeah,
headline.
flashing neon signs.
Exactly. It didn't treat the reader like an enemy combatant that needed to be conquered or psychologically broken down, right?
Right.
It just told a really simple story. Two young men who graduated from the exact same college and how their lives diverged based on one specific choice.
It's just a narrative.
Yeah. And over the next 25 years, that single letter generated, and I really want you all listening to hear this number, over $2 billion in revenue for the Wall Street Journal.
2 billion. With a B.
$2 billion. And it did it by completely ignoring that aggressive, business is war mindset that just dominates almost every marketing department today.
I mean, it is arguably the most successful piece of direct response copy ever written.
Oh, without a doubt.
And it perfectly illustrates the central thesis of what we are, unpacking today. Because we are so conditioned, I mean, all of us, to view commerce and marketing and sales as this hostile zero-sum game.
Totally.
We talk about launching campaigns and capturing target audiences.
Crushing the competition.
Exactly, crushing them. We use the literal language of the battlefield.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you treat your customer like an enemy to be, outmaneuvered or forced into submission, you actually destroy the very foundation of long-term entrepreneurial success.
Which brings us to the core mission of this deep dive. Because today, we are exploring the foundational principles of persuasion by basically analyzing the intro and the first chapter of a pretty legendary guide to sales architecture.
By Michael Masterson, yeah.
Right. And you, the listener, are going to learn why treating your marketing, every email, every video, every single pitch like a meticulously paced romantic relationship rather than a military assault is actually your ultimate competitive advantage.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
It is. It's the architectural blueprint for undeniable customer loyalty.
And we aren't just going to speak in abstract philosophies today either.
Yeah.
We're going to break down the literal psychological architecture of persuasion. We're going to look at how a master copywriter constructs a message from the very first visual point of contact all the way through to that final rational decision to buy. And by the end of this, you're going to see how substituting the concept of love for war just fundamentally changes the mechanics of how you communicate.
And how you structure your arguments, right?
Exactly. And how you earn trust.
So I want to start by looking at the physical tools of the trade. Because before we can revolutionize how you persuade, we really have to dismantle what is arguably the biggest myth in the direct response world.
The junk mail myth.
Yes. We need to look at the anatomy of a classic direct response sales letter. And I know what some of you listening are probably thinking right now.
I sell SaaS software?
Right. I run a YouTube channel, or I don't send physical mail, why do I care? Like, why does a physical letter matter in a completely digital age?
Well, it matters because the physical mail package is basically the grandfather of all modern digital marketing psychology.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. The frameworks we use right now on landing pages, in email funnels, video sales letters, they were all forged in the crucible of direct mail. This industry has a remarkable historical pedigree.
It goes way back.
Direct response has been around since mail was carried on horseback.
That's wild to think about.
It is. We're talking over 2 centuries of rigorous testing to see what actually makes human beings open their wallets. I mean, did you know F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote sales copy?
Wait, really? The Great Gatsby guy?
The very same. Ogden Nash did too. Mark Twain wrote promotional materials.
Okay, it's genuinely fascinating to think of Mark Twain, applying his deep understanding of human nature to like a promotional flyer.
Right. It completely validates the discipline.
It really does. It's not some modern internet invention. It's a deeply established psychological framework. So let's physically dissect this package. What are the actual anatomical parts of a classic direct mail piece? And, what is the psychological function of each one? Because they aren't just random pieces of paper stuffed in an envelope, right?
Exactly. Every single millimeter of paper has a designated psychological job.
Okay, walk me through it.
So first, you obviously have the envelope itself. This
Yeah.
is your first point of contact. It's the barrier to entry.
Right.
Inside, you have the sales letter, which is the main event. It's the core narrative.
Mm.
But alongside that letter, you often have something called a lift note.
A lift note. Okay, explain the mechanics of that. I think I've seen these before. They usually look totally different from the main letter, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes they are printed on smaller paper or they look like a handwritten memo or something.
That's exactly what they are. And that is a very deliberate visual pattern. Interrupt. The psychology of a lift note is to provide a secondary voice. Because when you're reading a long sales letter, your guard is naturally up, you know the author is trying to sell you something.
Right, you're on the defensive.
Precisely. So a lift note is usually signed by a third party. Maybe it's a satisfied customer, an industry expert, or even the president of the company, just saying something short like, hey, I know you are skeptical of what Jim is telling you in this letter, but I assure you it really worked for me.
Oh, that's clever.
And visually making it look handwritten or printing it on different colored stock, it literally breaks the hypnotic rhythm of the printed text.
Yeah.
It snaps your attention back and provides social proof from a seemingly objective outside source.
It's like it leverages the psychology of an endorsement.
Exactly.
Like if I'm trying to convince you of something, it's one thing. But if my colleague leans over and whispers, hey, he's actually telling the truth, it carries a totally different weight.
It changes the whole dynamic.
Okay, so what else is in the package?
Well, you might have a glossy brochure. This satisfies the visual learner. It provides high-quality images, charts, technical specifications, stuff that would, frankly, clutter up the narrative flow of the main letter.
Right, you don't want to bog down the story with specs.
Exactly. And then you have something called a buck slip.
A buck slip, which is literally the size of a dollar bill, right? Hence the name.
You got it. It's a small rectangular insert.
Yeah.
And because of its size and shape, it usually just kind of falls out of the package when you open it.
Oh, so it demands your attention immediately.
Immediately, you have to physically pick it up. The buck slip's psychological job is usually to hammer home one single overwhelming benefit or to eradicate the single biggest objection.
Give me an example.
It might just say in bold letters, read this if you're worried about our 100% money-back guarantee. It is a concentrated, heavy dose of reassurance.
I see.
And finally, of course, you have the order device, the actual physical card you fill out to make the purchase.
Right. So we have this meticulously constructed package. Envelope, letter, lift note, brochure, buck slip, order device.
It's an orchestra.
It really is. Every piece is an instrument. But here is where we run into the junk mail fallacy.
Oh, yes.
Because there is a massive, incredibly pervasive misconception in the marketing world about that very first point of contact, the envelope.
It's everywhere.
Or, in digital terms, the email subject line or the YouTube thumbnail.
Yeah.
The fallacy is this belief that the absolute one and only purpose of the envelope is simply to get itself opened.
And that is the deadliest fallacy in direct response.
Wow. Deadliest.
Absolutely. Though, to be fair, you could kind of understand why people fall for it, right? It sounds totally logical.
Yeah, the brain says, well, if they don't open the envelope, they can't read the letter. And if they can't read the letter, they can't buy.
Right.
Therefore, my only goal, by absolutely any means necessary, is to force an open.
But here's the flaw in that logic. If getting an open was the only goal, you would just print inside free money or inside carefree sex on the outside of every single envelope you ever sent.
Which would definitely get it open. Or, as we see all too often in real life, you make the envelope look exactly like a terrifying final notice from the IRS. Or a jury duty summons, or some urgent FedEx delivery. Marketers do this constantly. They print final notice, account past due on the outside.
Wow, that's awful.
And yes, people open those envelopes. The open rate is probably like 99%.
They absolutely get opened. But this is where we have to analyze the neurochemical sequence of what actually happens next.
Right, the aftermath.
Think about what happens the exact second the person rips open that fake IRS envelope. Their heart is pounding, adrenaline is spiking.
Or panicking.
And then they realize it is a pitch for a timeshare in Florida or a financial newsletter.
It's the worst feeling. It's an instant dopamine and adrenaline crash, followed immediately by a huge spike in cortisol. They are furious. Because, as marketers, we know a sensational subject line triggers a curiosity reflex. But the second the content betrays that promise, it registers in the brain as a literal threat.
It's a betrayal.
Right, it is betrayal of trust. The relationship is instantly dead before it even started.
Exactly. You haven't persuaded them, you have manipulated them.
Yeah.
And human beings deeply, fundamentally resent being manipulated.
Absolutely.
Even if your product is phenomenal, their cognitive bias is now firmly, aggressively set against you.
It perfectly mirrors the modern landscape of YouTube clickbait. Like, you see a video titled, "I'm quitting everything," with a thumbnail of the creator bawling their eyes out.
Oh, I hate those.
Right. But you click it because the dopamine hits. It's novel. It's dramatic. And then 10 seconds in, the creator says, "I'm quitting my old uploading schedule so I can upload twice as much. Anyway, buy my course."
Just terrible.
Sure, the creator got the click. The algorithm registered the open. But as the viewer, what do? I immediately hit the dislike button, I close the video, and I probably unsubscribe because you just lied to me to get my attention.
Yeah.
The trust deficit is just insurmountable before the actual pitch even begins.
That is a phenomenal modern analogy. The open rate is a vanity metric if the open is achieved through deception.
A vanity metric. I love that.
And here's something that might surprise you. Even using a completely blank white envelope, which studies actually show does get a very high open rate out of sheer human curiosity, even that rarely creates blockbuster long-term sales.
Wait, really? A blank envelope fails too?
Yeah.
Why? There's no deception there? It's not tricking you? It's just a blank envelope?
Well, there's no deception, but there's also no context.
Oh, I see.
A blank envelope gets opened, sure, but it completely fails to set a mood. It fails to prime the reader's psychology for the specific argument inside. When they open it, their brain is starting from absolute zero or worse, mild annoyance at having to figure out what this mystery document even is.
Like, what is this? Who sent this to me?
Exactly. So for you, the listener, the practical takeaway here is absolute.
Yeah.
Your very first point of contact with a prospect must do significantly more than just grab attention.
Right.
It must set the exact right expectation for what follows. It must initiate a relationship based on a truthful, emotionally resonant premise.
So, okay, if trickery, deception, and the whole IRS scare tactic thing are entirely off the table, what is the correct psychological posture?
Right.
Like, how do we approach our audience if we aren't trying to ambush them into our funnel? Which brings us to the core philosophical shift of this deep dive, love versus war.
The true challenge of the copywriter.
Right, because this is where we have to consciously step away from that Sun Tzu battlefield mentality that is just so glorified in business culture today.
Oh, it's everywhere. The art of war for business?
Right. The traditional marketing war mindset dictates that you wear the prospect down. You badger them. You bully them with artificial scarcity.
Only 3 seats left.
Exactly. You manipulate their insecurities and their fears until they finally submit and hand over their credit card, literally just to relieve the pressure.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And the true challenge of anyone trying to persuade, whether you are writing copy, running a sales call, or even designing a user interface, is to actively, philosophically reject those martial arts of selling.
I really want to highlight how the source material frames this because it's a high bar. It states that your goal should be to improve the world one sale at a time by promoting good products with genuine integrity.
It's beautiful, really.
It is. You are seeking a mutually beneficial relationship that lasts a lifetime, not a one-night stand transaction.
That is the paradigm shift right there. And the author uses this extended metaphor throughout the chapter to help visualize the difference between these two approaches.
I love this metaphor.
It's great. I want you to imagine that you are an archaeology professor. Think of like a refined Indiana Jones.
Okay, am I thinking?
You are attending this elegant evening party hosted by the Explorers Society, and you look across the room and you see a brilliant, highly attractive woman. You immediately want to get to know her to spark a genuine romance.
All right. The scene is set. I'm the dashing professor.
Now, if you approach her and immediately use a crude, highly aggressive pickup line, which is the exact equivalent of the war tactic, the fake IRS envelope, the clickbait YouTube title, what is the inevitable result?
Well, she throws her champagne in my face. Or more likely, just rolls her eyes, turns her back, and warns all her friends about me.
Exactly.
Because the aggressive approach is profoundly disrespectful. It signals to her that I view her merely as a target, just a conquest. It screams that I am only interested in a very quick, transactional, entirely selfish outcome.
Precisely. Now, if your actual goal is to start a genuine, lasting partnership, you have to earn her attention. You have to charm her. You have to present yourself authentically, but obviously in the best possible light. You have to respect her intelligence and initiate a conversation that she actively wants to be a part of.
That makes total sense.
And the exact same psychology applies to your customer. Before you write a single word of your sales copy or design your pitch deck, you have to ask yourself a filtering question.
What's the question?
Will this approach help me love the customer, or will this approach help me fool them?
Wow.
Yeah. If you choose to be a partner rather than a fighter in business, you build this massive, durable reservoir of long-term goodwill.
I hear that, and part of me absolutely loves the elegance of that philosophy,
Sure,
but
sure, yeah.
I have to push back here because this is where a lot of practical business operators get cynical.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Right. Like, it sounds beautiful when we are talking about an Indiana Jones romance at an Explorer Society party, but let's be incredibly real. What if I am not selling exotic adventures? What if my product is fundamentally dry?
Very common problem.
Let's say I'm selling B2B wholesale dental imaging equipment to clinic managers.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'm selling, I don't know, supply chain logistics software. Or industrial HVAC maintenance contracts.
Right.
There's absolutely nothing inherently romantic about an HVAC maintenance contract. So how do you practically romance a facility manager over air conditioning filters without sounding utterly ridiculous?
It's a great question, and that is the exact friction point where most B2B marketers just abandon this philosophy entirely.
Because it feels silly.
Exactly. They hear the word romance, and they assume it means poetry or flowery language or superficial charm.
Lighting some candles for the dental equipment.
Right, which would be weird. But in the context of business, romance is not about being poetic. Romance is the act of profound empathy combined with genuine competence.
Break that down for me. Empathy as romance. How does that look in, say, the dental equipment example?
So, true business romance means sincerely believing that your dental imaging equipment solves a very real, very painful problem for that clinic manager.
Mm.
It is about understanding their daily grinding frustrations.
Their pain points.
Yes. You have to empathize with the fact that their current machines are slow, which creates a massive bottleneck in the waiting room.
Okay.
You have to understand that the clinic manager is stressed out of their mind because patients are leaving bad reviews about the wait times, and then the dentists are yelling at the manager because throughput is down and they're losing money.
So you are mapping out their specific ecosystem of pain.
Exactly. And approaching them with romance means you don't send an email with the subject line, "Critical alert, your clinic is losing money."
Right, because that's the war tactic. That just spikes their cortisol again.
Exactly. Approaching them with romance means your messaging says something more like, "I see the bottleneck in your waiting room. I understand how stressful it is when patients are backed up and doctors are frustrated. And we built an imaging machine specifically designed to cut scan times in half, relieving that exact pressure."
Oh, wow. That's totally different.
Authenticity and deep empathy represent the ultimate romantic gesture in business. It's saying, "I see your specific pain, I respect your intelligence, and I have honestly built something to help you."
I love that.
That empathy translates into trust, whether you are selling a luxury vacation or a SaaS logistics dashboard.
That reframes it entirely. It's not about being smooth or slick. It's about making the prospect feel deeply understood.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say you've made that mental shift. You are committed to empathizing with the customer, not fighting them.
Mhm.
How do you execute that structurally?
Right, the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, which brings us to the actual architecture of the message, the front of the house, and the concept of engineering positive anticipation using the 3 Ps: purpose, problem, and possibility.
Yes. So the architecture of a persuasive message is divided into 2 main sections, the front of the house and the back of the house.
Okay.
The front is entirely about managing emotion and building anticipation. It consists of 3 elements: the envelope teaser, or your subject line or thumbnail, the headline, and the lead, which are the opening paragraphs of your message.
And for each of these 3 elements, the author outlines a specific framework using those 3 Ps.
Correct. For every single element, you must identify the baseline purpose, you must acknowledge the psychological problem or resistance the prospect has at that exact moment, and then you must engineer the higher possibility.
Let's dissect these, starting with the envelope teaser, like the absolute first impression.
Okay, so the baseline purpose of the envelope or the email subject line is simply to get opened. We know that.
Right.
But the problem you face is the prospect's default protective mindset. Their brain is actively filtering out noise all day long. They're thinking, "This is junk mail. I'm busy. I'm going to delete this or throw it in the recycling bin."
So their guard is all the way up.
All the way up. So the higher possibility, the goal of a master copywriter is not just to trick them into opening it, but to get them to open it with a very specific feeling of positive anticipation.
Positive anticipation.
Yes, you want them thinking, "Oh, this looks genuinely intriguing. This might actually be important to me."
Let's apply our Explorer Society metaphor to this because I think it helps ground it. The envelope teaser is your opening line at the party. You walk across the room to the woman. If your opening line is boring, nice weather we're having, she just ignores you.
Yep.
If it's a crude pickup line, the clickbait, she rejects you and feels insulted. But if you walk up and say something genuinely intriguing, like, I don't know, asking for her expert opinion to help settle a fascinating debate you were just having about ancient artifacts, you have successfully sparked positive anticipation.
You've engaged her.
Right. She is engaged. She actually wants to hear what you say next.
Exactly. And because of that, you have earned the right to proceed to the next step, which is the headline.
Okay, step 2.
You've opened the envelope. Now you're looking at the top of the letter. The purpose of the headline is to get them to start reading the actual text. But the problem is that the prospect is still highly guarded.
They are, even after opening it.
Oh, definitely. Their internal monologue is defensive. They're thinking, okay, you got my attention, but I've been fooled before by catchy subject lines. Prove to me this is actually worth my time before I commit to reading this whole thing.
So they are actively looking for an excuse to bail out.
They're looking for the exit sign. So the higher possibility of the headline is to intensify the positive anticipation you started with the envelope. The headline must confirm that the promise made on the outside is going to be fulfilled on the inside.
So back at the party, you've had a great initial chat. The positive anticipation is there. The headline is the equivalent of you asking if she would like to step away from the loud, crowded party and walk the short distance to your house to actually see these rare amulets you were just discussing.
Exactly.
And if your invitation is respectful, intriguing, and entirely consistent with your charming opening, she agrees.
That word you just used, consistent, is the most important word in persuasion.
Emotional consistency.
Emotional consistency is paramount. Which brings us to the third and arguably most difficult element of the front of the house, the lead.
The lead.
This is the first few paragraphs of your copy, or the first minute of your video. The purpose is to hook them into the main body of your sales argument.
And the problem here is massive, right? Like, this is where the walls really go up.
This is the absolute danger zone.
Why?
The problem is the prospect's inherent, deeply ingrained skepticism. Because at this point, the illusion is completely gone.
Oh, they know.
They know they are reading a sales pitch. They know you want their money or their time. Their amygdala is firing, telling them to be careful. They are thinking, okay, I know what this is. I'm being sold to, and I don't like being sold to.
Let's pause and really explore this psychology of skepticism for a second, because I think this is where, like, 90% of marketing fails.
I'd agree with that.
Why do people put those walls up the exact second they realize it's a pitch? It's not just about money, is it?
No.
It's about autonomy. We hate the feeling of someone else trying to control our decisions. So how does a copywriter navigate that? How do you lower a wall that the prospect's brain is biologically hardwired to raise?
You lower it through immense, immediate value and empathy.
Value and empathy.
You cannot bash the wall down with hype. You can't just shout louder. You have to dissolve it. The higher possibility of the lead is to broaden and deepen their anticipation so thoroughly that their skepticism simply melts away.
How so?
You provide so much insight, so much resonance with their specific problem that their internal dialogue actually shifts. It goes from I'm being sold to wow, this is incredibly valuable material. I am actively glad I am reading this, regardless of what they eventually pitch me.
Let's bring the metaphor home here, because this is where the imagery of the architecture really clicks for me.
Go for it.
So the envelope was the opening line at the party. The headline was walking her to your front door.
Right.
The lead is the foyer of your house.
Yes.
You have just stepped inside. The front door literally closes behind her. Physically and psychologically, she is naturally going to feel a spike of vulnerability.
Of course. Why am I here? Is this guy for real? Was this a mistake?
Exactly. That is the exact equivalent of the prospect realizing they are in a sales funnel. The vulnerability, the skepticism, the regret.
Spot on.
Now, if you told her at the party you wanted to show her rare amulets, but the exact second you step into the foyer, you drop the charm entirely and say, actually, let's just hop in the hot tub. What happened?
She runs for her life.
She runs, and rightly so.
Rightly so, because the emotional consistency was violently broken. It was a bait and switch.
Totally.
You promised an intellectual romantic engagement, and you instantly pivoted to a cheap transactional demand. You proved you were fighting a war, not building a relationship.
So how do you master the foyer? Like, practically?
Well, in the foyer, your sole job is to make the prospect feel safe, intrigued, and validated in their decision to cross the threshold. You don't rush them. You don't lock the door behind them.
Right, no pressure.
To use the metaphor, you might point out a fascinating, heavily annotated book on the entryway table about the very amulets you discussed, proving immediately that you actually are the expert you claim to be.
Oh, that's good.
You pour a cup of coffee. You systematically, gently escalate their emotional commitment without ever rushing the final outcome.
It's like laying out a breadcrumb trail. But here is the critical key for anyone listening. Each crumb has to taste exactly like the one before it.
Yes.
Consistency, the emotional flavor must be identical, just a little bit richer, a little bit more profound as you go. You lead them step by step, maintaining emotional consistency at every single touch point so they never feel that jarring jolt of being sold.
They shouldn't even notice it.
Right, they don't realize how far into the forest they've walked because they are genuinely enjoying the journey. So the ultimate practical takeaway for the front of the house is this. Never, ever jump straight from hello to the final pitch. You must master the foyer.
I couldn't agree more. You have to master the foyer. You have to secure the emotional yes, that feeling of being understood and intrigued long before you ever ask for the logical or financial yes.
Which brings us perfectly to key idea 4, the back of the house and the rational justification.
The pivot.
The pivot. Okay, so let's say we have successfully navigated the foyer. The prospect is emotionally hooked. They feel understood. The dopamine is flowing the right way. They are thinking, I like this brand. I want the solution.
They're primed.
But, and this is a massive but, emotions alone do not sustain a healthy long-term relationship. And in the business world, good feelings rarely close a complex deal.
Definitely not.
Like if I am trying to buy a $10,000 software suite, the fact that I feel romanced by the marketing isn't going to get the invoice approved by my CFO.
No, your CFO doesn't care about romance.
Exactly. Now, we have to pivot. We have to appeal to their logical brain.
And this is a crucial, often fumbled pivot. We are moving from the front of the letter to the back of the letter.
Okay, the back of the house.
The back consists of two main elements, the sales argument and the close. And just like the front, these have their own specific purposes, problems, possibilities. Let's look at the sales argument first.
Lay it out for us.
The baseline purpose here is to present your claims, outline the features, and prove that your product actually works.
And the problem is that the skeptic returns, right? The emotional high of the foyer starts to cool off.
Exactly. The neocortex, the rational, analytical part of the brain, is waking up.
It's sobering up.
Yeah. The prospect's internal dialogue is saying, hold on, take a breath. This sounds amazing, and I really want it to be true. But logically, this is probably no different than the last 3 products I bought that totally failed me.
Prove it.
Prove to me this isn't just slick marketing.
So what is the possibility? How do we satisfy the neocortex without losing the emotional momentum we built in the foyer?
The higher possibility of the sales argument is not just to list a boring table of features.
Yeah.
It is to construct an airtight case that shows the prospect that buying your product is the single most rational, logical thing they could possibly do.
Okay, how?
You must give them the hard ammunition, the data, the case studies, the ROI calculations to logically justify the emotional decision they already made in the foyer.
Let's go back to our metaphor. The lead was the foyer. The sales argument is moving from the foyer into the living room.
Right.
You sit down by the fire, you pour a drink, and you actually bring out the rare amulets.
You show them the goods.
Yes. You let her hold them. You answer her questions no matter how detailed they are. You explain the carbon dating. You show the historical provenance. You are providing tangible, undeniable proof that you are exactly who you claim to be at the party.
Absolutely.
You are backing up your initial charm with absolute rock-solid substance.
That's exactly it. In marketing terms, you are providing the testimonials, the peer-reviewed statistics, the technical breakdowns, and the guarantee.
Right.
You cannot rely entirely on hype or emotion. If you do, even if you manage to push them into a sale, the relationship is doomed from the start.
Because if you rely only on emotion, you create the ultimate enemy of the marketer, buyer's remorse.
The dreaded buyer's remorse.
I want to dive into the psychology of buyer's remorse for a second, because understanding the back of the house is the only way to cure it.
It's the antidote, yeah.
If you skip the living room, if you just use massive, breathless, emotional hype to push a customer from the foyer straight into the transaction, what happens? They might buy in the heat of the moment because their limbic system is overwhelmed.
Yes, the emotion overrides the logic temporarily. It happens all the time.
But then they wake up the next morning, the emotional high fades, the dopamine is gone, the neocortex turns back on.
The hangover.
Exactly, the marketing hangover. They look at their credit card statement, they look at the product, and they realize they have absolutely zero rational justification for what they just spent. They can't explain to their spouse or their CFO why they bought it.
Because you didn't give them the language to explain it.
Right. Instantly, they feel manipulated, they feel cheapened. And what's their first action? They call customer service and demand a refund.
That is the exact pathology of buyer's remorse. It is the inevitable result of an emotional sale that lacks a logical foundation.
So
The sales argument, the living room, is what prevents that. It builds a logical foundation so solid that when the customer wakes up the next day, they don't feel regret. They feel incredibly smart.
they feel empowered.
Yes, they feel empowered because they made a highly rational decision that also happens to feel great. Which leads us to the final room of the house, the close.
The moment of truth. Asking for the money.
The purpose of the close is simple, to explicitly ask for the sale. The problem is the final, lingering friction of parting with resources. It's that moment of hesitation. Okay, I love the product, I believe the logical proof, I trust this company, but should I actually spend this money right now? Maybe I'll wait until next month.
The procrastination reflex, we all have it.
Precisely. So the higher possibility of the close is to eradicate any residual skepticism or hesitation so completely that the prospect feels delighted, relieved, and actively proud of their decision to take immediate action.
How do you do that?
You use risk reversal, like ironclad guarantees, to remove the fear of making a mistake. You make the act of buying feel safer than the act of doing nothing.
To finish our metaphor, the close is not about conquer or conquest. It's about sitting down at the dinner table together and agreeing to a long-term partnership.
Exactly.
You are formalizing the relationship because you have successfully, methodically, and respectfully won both her heart in the foyer and her mind in the living room. You didn't rush it. You didn't force it. You earned a seat at the table.
You earned it through consistency, empathy, and proof. The practical takeaway here is that masterful persuasion requires a dual-track approach. You must engage the heart to gain entry, but you absolutely must satisfy the mind to secure the commitment.
Wait, I love that.
Emotion opens the door. Logic locks it from the inside.
The emotion opens the door. Logic locks it from the inside. That is a brilliant way to frame it. So what does this all mean when we pull back and look at the entire architectural blueprint we've just laid out? Let's synthesize this. We've gone from the envelope to the close, from the party to the dinner table.
The soul of this entire chapter, and really the ultimate lesson for anyone looking to persuade in the modern world, is a profound paradigm shift.
Right.
It is the conscious, deliberate decision to move away from manipulating a quick adversarial transaction and moving toward architecting a lasting, mutually beneficial relationship.
It's permanently abandoning the war room in favor of the living room.
Exactly. By treating your sales process like a perfectly paced, respectful courtship, and by rigorously applying those 3 Ps, purpose, problem, and possibility, to every single element of your message, you accomplish something remarkable.
What's that?
You guide the customer on a journey of discovery. You take them from being a skeptical, guarded stranger fending off junk mail to an emotionally engaged guest in your foyer to a rationally convinced, delighted, long-term partner at your table.
Wow.
It is never about conquering an enemy. It is entirely about inviting a friend into your house.
I think that is such a powerful reframe, particularly for people who feel, dirty when they have to sell.
Absolutely.
It changes how you write every single email subject line. It changes how you script the first 30 seconds of every YouTube video. It changes the posture of every sales call. It elevates the entire profession of marketing from something gross and manipulative to something genuinely hospitable and helpful.
It restores integrity to the process of commerce. Because if you truly believe in the value of your product, you owe it to your prospect to romance them properly, to guide them past their own skepticism so they can actually experience the benefit you have to offer.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a provocative thought to really mull over. We live in a modern digital ecosystem that is defined by 3-second attention spans and infinite scrolling.
It's exhausting.
It is. We are constantly bombarded by aggressive, rapid-fire ads, neon text, and influencers screaming at us to buy now or click here before a fake countdown timer hits 0.
Yeah, the artificial scarcity.
In a landscape that is that chaotic, that loud, and that aggressively martial, taking the time to slowly, methodically, and respectfully romance your customer might just be the most disruptive and unfair competitive advantage you can possibly wield. When everyone else in your industry is shouting at the top of their lungs, a charming, intelligent whisper is deafening.
It is the ultimate pattern interrupt. Kindness, empathy, and patience in a world addicted to aggressive tactics will always stand out.
But that philosophical shift leaves a massive, highly practical question hanging in the air.
Which is?
We know we need to be charming at the party. We know we need to engineer positive anticipation. But how exactly do you write that perfect opening line on the envelope or the subject line without sounding desperate or boring or just plain weird? What are the actual words you use?
That's the billion-dollar question.
Next time, we are going to step right up to the front door as we explore the exact psychological science of crafting the perfect envelope teaser. We'll see you then.
When you are trying to persuade someone, whether you're, writing an email or pitching an idea or maybe selling a product, are you treating it like a war or are you trying to fall in love?
Oh, that's quite a question to start with.
Right. But I want you, the listener, to really sit with that distinction for a second, because we are fundamentally conditioned to view the market and just persuasion in general as a battlefield.
Yeah, we use that language all the time.
Exactly. You select a target audience. You launch a campaign. You capture market share.
You defeat the competition. It's very aggressive.
It is. But what if the most ruthless competitive advantage you can actually have today is, well, what if it's radical sincerity? Like long-term romance.
I love that. It completely flips the script on how we're taught to operate.
It really does. And so today, we are unpacking the ultimate copywriter's challenge, how to craft a message so compelling that people actively want to read it.
Right, instead of just forcing it down their throats.
Exactly. We're going to learn the psychological architecture of a perfect sales letter, from the very first impression all the way to the final pitch.
And we're pulling this from a really fascinating source today, right?
We are. We're doing a deep dive into Michael Masterson's concepts, specifically focusing on this idea of the architecture of persuasion. We'll discover why treating your audience like a long-term partner is genuinely the absolute best strategy for anyone interested in business or entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and to really grasp why this shift from, an adversarial mindset to a collaborative one is so vital, we kind of have to look at the sheer scale of the environment we're in.
And noise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, back in 2008, the direct marketing industry was estimated at a staggering $2 trillion.
Wait, $2 trillion. With a T.
With a T, and that was years ago. So we are talking about a virtually incomprehensible volume of mail, emails, catalogs, just ads flooding the global consciousness every single day.
$2 trillion means the noise level is literally deafening. Every company is shouting, just trying to get a fraction of a second of your attention.
Right. And in an arena that massive, the temptation to reach for those battlefield tactics is overwhelming. You feel like you have to force your way through.
You feel desperate.
You do. And Masterson actually points this out. He references the martial metaphor we see so often in business literature. Books like Sun Tzu was a sissy.
Oh, wow.
Right. The whole premise of that genre is that commerce is this continuous, low-level conflict that occasionally flares up into lethal combat for consumer attention.
Which is such a dark way to look at the world. Because if you accept that, you implicitly accept a really dark view of the customer.
Exactly. They cease to be a human being with a problem to solve.
They just become like an enemy hiding behind a wall of money that rightfully belongs to you.
Yeah. An opponent you have to conquer or trick or bully. And
Yeah.
when you view them that way, your communication actually gets aggressive. You look for psychological pressure points.
You try to force a conversion. But our sources argue that the true challenge for a writer like The Real Test is to completely reject that martial metaphor. Business shouldn't be a battlefield. It should be like love.
A mutually beneficial, steadily improving romance that lasts a lifetime.
Not a one-night stand.
Exactly. The contrast there is really stark. You have the one-night stand copywriter versus the copywriting lover.
Okay, break that down for me.
Yeah.
What does the one-night stand copywriter look like?
So the one-night stand approach relies entirely on hype, unsubstantiated hype to sell an inferior product. They make these wild, exaggerated claims.
Lose 50 pounds in 3 days.
Exactly. They use flashy, manipulative urgency. And the thing is, sometimes it works. For a minute.
Right, because people get caught up in the frenzy.
They do. They make the purchase. But the moment they receive the product and realize the massive gap between the promise and the reality,
The relationship is instantly destroyed.
permanently destroyed. It's a sleazy one-night stand.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Because let's be real, if we look at our spam folders or, our social media feeds, it's an endless ocean of this aggressive, hypey, bamboozling stuff.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Right. So if treating the customer like an opponent to be tricked doesn't work, why do we see it so often? Doesn't it work?
Well, it works for a single transaction, but it fails completely at building a business.
Ah, okay.
If you look at the math of customer relationships, and this is true in direct marketing or truly any modern enterprise, the real profit does not live in that initial acquisition.
Because acquiring a customer is expensive.
Incredibly expensive. The margins on a first sale are usually razor thin or even negative. The actual sustainable profit is in the back end.
Meaning the second, third, fourth purchases.
Exactly. The purchases they make over the next decade, that lifetime value of a trusting customer is where the money is.
So the one-night stand tactic, it basically burns the bridge while you're standing on it.
That's a great way to put it. You might force a $20 conversion today using a deceptive headline, but you forfeit the $2,000 that person would have gladly given you over the next 5 years.
Because they now recognize you as a liar.
Right. They don't trust you anymore. And this leads to a really practical takeaway before you even sit down to write.
Which is?
You have to actually believe in what you're pitching.
Oh, I love that.
It's mandatory. If the product is fundamentally flawed, you are forced to rely on smoke and mirrors. You have to invent benefits.
But if it's genuinely good?
If it's good, copywriting becomes so much easier. You aren't inventing, you're mining. You have factual gold to mine.
You can build your message on truth and sincerity. That makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
So if we transition from this philosophy of love into the actual mechanics of the relationship, how do we structure this? Because you can't just send an email that says, I respect you, please buy my stuff.
I mean, you could, but it wouldn't work very well.
Right. So Masterson introduces this concept of the house of persuasion.
Yes. A complete sales message is like a physical structure. It has 5 distinct elements divided into 2 parts, the front and the back.
Okay, so the front would be the curb appeal, the front porch, the envelope teaser, the headline, and the lead.
Exactly. And the back is the living space, the sales argument, and the close.
So why the division?
Because you can't invite someone into the living room to sign a lease if they are still standing on the sidewalk refusing to look at the house.
That is such a good analogy. It's like navigating a video game.
How do you mean?
Like you're in a fortress, and every single room has a specific guard you have to get past. You can't use the strategy for the final boss-like closing the sale when you're still in the courtyard trying to get through the front gate.
That is exactly it. At each of these 5 stages, the reader has a specific sequential psychological roadblock. A guard at the door.
Okay, let's walk through the guards. What's the first one?
Step 1 is the envelope teaser. And the guard here is the feeling of, this is junk mail, it's not for me.
So they're just holding the envelope over the trash can.
Yeah. Exactly. Your only goal at this step is to get them not to throw it away. Just open it.
Okay, so they open it. Now what?
Now they hit the headline, and the guard here says, damn, I've been fooled again.
Ah, the buyer's remorse of paying attention.
Right. They realize it's a pitch, and they get defensive. You have to soothe that regret immediately.
And if you do, they move to the lead,
Yeah.
the opening paragraphs.
Yes. And here, the guard is saying, I know what this is. I've seen it 100 times. I'm not interested.
They're bored. They're skeptical.
Very skeptical. So you have to prove this is different and uniquely tailored to them. If you survive that, you finally get to the back of the house. Step 4. The sales argument.
Which is where logic kicks in, right?
Exactly. The guard here says, sure, sounds nice, but this is no different than other products I've bought that failed me.
So you have to meticulously prove your claims. Show the data, show the proof.
Right. And if you win that grueling debate, you arrive at the final boss. The close.
Let me guess. Procrastination.
Nailed it. The guard says, it's a good product, but should I buy it right now? Maybe next month.
The silent killer of sales.
Absolutely. So the practical takeaway here is don't rush the sale. Map your writing to the exact psychological stage your reader is currently in.
Your only goal at step 1 is to earn the right to step 2.
Precisely. If you try to close the deal in the headline, the whole house collapses.
That makes so much sense. But then this is where I think the text gets really interesting. There's a difference between just surviving those guards and actually mastering them, right?
Yes. The difference between average B-level writers and master A-level writers.
Okay, break that down, because a B-level writer looks at those 5 steps and just tries to overcome the negative problem.
Right. They just want to avoid being thrown away. But an A-level writer aims for the higher possibility. They want to instill a powerful, positive emotion.
Can you give an example of that? Let's take the envelope teaser again.
Sure, so a B-level writer just wants the envelope opened. That's the mechanical problem. So they might print, in huge red letters, cash inside, open immediately.
Which, I mean, that works, right? Everyone is going to open that.
Mechanically, yes. It gets a near 100% open rate. But psychologically, it is a catastrophic failure.
Because there's no cash inside.
Exactly. The moment they open it and find a pitch for, say, a magazine subscription, they feel instant disappointment, betrayal.
It's the ultimate one-night stand move. You tricked them to get the open.
Right. And now they hate you. The A-level writer's possibility is totally different. They want the envelope opened, yes, but in a frame of mind conducive to positive anticipation.
They want the reader to actively think, this is really good. I'm glad I'm reading this.
Exactly. You want to engineer a feeling of hope, not just avoid being ignored.
Okay, but I have to push back on this.
Yeah.
Because I get these envelopes all the time. The ones that look exactly like official tax documents from the IRS. Or like an urgent FedEx delivery.
Bro, the window envelopes with the fake barcodes?
Yes. And my heart drops every time. But I open them 100% of the time. So if the goal is getting eyeballs on the pitch, aren't they winning?
They're winning the open, but they are losing the sale. Think about the physiological whiplash you just described.
My heart drops. I panic.
Right. Your autonomic nervous system goes into fight or flight. You rip it open defensively. And when you see it's just an ad for car insurance, what happens to that fear?
It turns into pure, hot anger.
Exactly. You're furious. And that completely violates the truth and sincerity requirement of the romance metaphor we talked about.
You can't start a loving relationship by giving someone a heart attack.
You really can't. If they open the envelope in a state of annoyed relief, their cognitive defenses are fully raised. They will read your pitch with impenetrable skepticism.
But if they open it with curious anticipation...
Their defenses are lowered. They're receptive.
Wow. Okay, so how do we engineer that? How do we know what to put on the envelope to create positive anticipation without lying?
That requires deep prospect research. You have to know exactly who you are talking to.
And this brings us to this amazing extended metaphor in the chapter, the Explorers Society Party.
I love this metaphor.
So paint the picture for us.
Imagine you're an archaeology professor. You're brilliant. You're stepping into this very exclusive cocktail party at the Explorers Society.
And this party represents our mailing list, right?
Exactly. It's your intelligently assembled list of prospects.
Yeah.
So you step into the room and you see someone across the room you really want to talk to. A beautiful woman, a fascinating man. How do you know what to say to them?
Well, I don't just guess or walk up and use a canned pickup line. That's a recipe for disaster.
Right. You don't guess. Empathy requires data. Before you ever introduce yourself, you have to do the research.
So in the direct marketing world, what does that research look like?
It means reading the demographics on the data cards, but more importantly, it means studying historical behavior. You look at past promotions, the high usage winners, the ones they responded to enthusiastically.
That makes sense. Find out what worked before.
But you also have to study the losers, the catastrophic failures.
See, I groaned when I read this part. Why look at the losers? Isn't that just depressing? Like, why waste time dissecting a letter that didn't make a dime?
It sounds like a waste of time, but it's actually protective. Knowing what failed is the equivalent of knowing exactly which pickup lines will get a drink thrown in your face at that party.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. It maps the landmines.
Exactly. If you notice that every past campaign that used fear-mongering totally bombed with this list, you instantly know. Do not use fear with these people. It saves you weeks of writing a doomed campaign.
And the text also mentions interviewing actual customers.
Yeah.
Right.
Talking to them about what they liked, what they found unbelievable. You gather all this insight from successes and failures, so you essentially have a blueprint to your prospect's mind.
So you know what they care about before you even say hello. Okay, so we've done the homework. We're at the party. We're walking across the room to make contact. This is the envelope teaser.
Step one.
The sources detail two main strategies for this opening line. The blank envelope versus the teaser copy.
Yes.
Let's start with the blank envelope. In our party metaphor, this is like walking up to the person at the bar, standing next to them, giving a warm smile, and just staying completely silent, hoping they start the conversation.
It's a bold move.
Very bold. But in mail, it's a plain white envelope, no logos, maybe a typed address, a real postage stamp. It mimics personal first-class mail.
And historically, it's highly effective at getting the open because it leverages our innate curiosity. We see a plain envelope, our brain doesn't categorize it as junk. We assume it's personal.
An invitation, a letter from a friend. So we open it just to resolve the mystery.
Right, but the alternative is the teaser copy.
Which is walking up with a carefully crafted opening line.
Exactly. And to do this well without sounding like a sleazy salesperson, you can use approaches from master copywriters like Bob Bly.
What are his methods?
Well, one is asking a very targeted question, like, how would you like to reduce car insurance by 50%?
Direct benefits.
Very direct. If your research tells you this audience feels overcharged for insurance, that question demands engagement. Another method is flattering the prospect.
For you, a discriminating art buyer.
Yes. Or making a bold prediction, oil to boom next year.
Wow.
Here's how to profit.
It's clear, it's smart, but my favorite approach from the text is Gene Schwartz's method, the fascinations.
Oh, fascinations are incredible.
Bisect these for us.
Oh.
Because they're so powerful.
A fascination is a bulleted, irresistible, highly specific tidbit of information. And the teaser only reveals the setup. The answer is hidden inside.
Okay, give me an example.
So an envelope might have bullets that say, inside, what never ever to eat on an airplane. Or the little-known casinos in Atlantic City that actually offer the best odds.
Okay, stop right there because my brain literally latched onto that. I don't even go to Atlantic City.
Yeah.
And I suddenly feel this intense, irrational need to know which casinos have the best odds. Wait, really, why does that work so well?
It's fascinating, right? It relies on two things. First, the Zeigarnik effect, the open loop.
Oh.
The brain hates incomplete information. It feels like an itch. And the only way to scratch it is to open the envelope.
Just like needing to know who the killer is in a mystery show.
Exactly. And the second thing is the scale of the promise. It's not promising you'll become a billionaire. It's promising a micro benefit, a tiny, highly specific piece of trivia.
So it bypasses skepticism.
Right. The cost of believing it is low, but the curiosity is massive.
Like being offered one perfectly salted potato chip instead of a 5-course meal. You don't have to commit. You just want the chip.
That's a great way to look at it. The practical takeaway is that your opening line, whether it's a question, a prediction, or a list of fascinations, has to be smart and charming. But above all, true.
You can't promise the airplane secret and not deliver it.
Exactly. You have to write dozens of options to find the one that makes them feel they've found something special.
Which brings us to the most advanced concept in the entire chapter, the ultimate hack.
Yes. The strategy of indirection.
Pioneered by Bill Bonner. To understand why this is so devastatingly effective, we actually have to talk about philosophy for a second.
We do. We have to look at Immanuel Kant.
Which, bringing Kant into a copywriting discussion, is exactly why I love these deep dives.
It totally works, though. Kant had this concept of the categorical imperative. And if you apply it to modern psychology, it explains how our brains filter information.
Right, because we are bombarded with so much data every millisecond. If we tried to consciously evaluate everything, our brains would literally melt down.
Total catastrophic overload. So our brains developed an aggressive filtration system. It scans for patterns and sorts things into mental boxes.
Automatically.
So if your email uses loud fonts, neon colors, and says buy now and save, your brain recognizes that pattern instantly.
And it categorizes it as junk mail.
Exactly. And once it's in that box, it gets deleted. Your conscious, rational mind never even sees it. The guard at the front gate just hits the trapdoor button.
So the million-dollar question is, how do you bypass the categorical imperative? How do you keep the brain from throwing you in the junk box?
And the answer is indirection.
Okay, let's unpack this with our Explorer Society party metaphor. A direct approach is marching up to the person and saying, hello, I am wealthy and you should date me.
Which is terrible. That's direct advertising.
Right. So indirection is what?
You don't approach head-on. You present a puzzle. You talk about something completely unrelated. You use this when consumer resistance is at its highest.
The text gives an amazing example of this from Nightingale Conant.
Yes. So they were selling a self-improvement audio program. A standard direct approach on the envelope would have been, buy our audio program and learn the secrets to getting rich.
Which immediately gets thrown in the trash. Brain says, get rich, scam, delete.
Right. The categorical imperative destroys it. But instead, they used pure indirection. The outside of the envelope just said, no one gets rich without it. But with it, people achieve the impossible.
Oh, wow. That completely halts the filtering process. Because the brain doesn't know what it is. There's no pattern to recognize.
The sorting facility is paralyzed. And then the copy gives clues. Donald Trump admits he needs one. Bill Gates has one. Henry Ford built an empire from it. And then asks, what is it? Look inside.
It's a masterpiece. You're not being asked to buy a cassette tape. You're being invited to solve a high-stakes riddle. You drop your guard completely.
Masterson also gives another example that's a bit wild. He talks about this pickup artist named Mystery.
Oh, right. Setting aside the social dynamics of that whole scene, the mechanics he uses are really interesting.
They are, because he knows if he approaches a group at a bar with the standard compliment, they'll categorize him as a nuisance and put their shields up.
Guy hitting on us. Defense is up.
Exactly. So he uses indirection. He walks up and asks a totally unrelated question, something like, I wonder if you could help me settle a debate my friends and I are having.
A pattern interrupt.
Complete interrupt. The brain categorizes it as a harmless social inquiry, not a romantic overture. And he earns a 3-minute window to actually have a normal conversation.
Okay, I have to ask about this, though, because I'm marveling at the Nightingale-Conan example, but
Yeah.
is this not just manipulation? Like, are we just tricking people in a more sophisticated way?
That is the big question.
Yeah, how does indirection not just become that sleazy one-night stand thing we warned against?
It all comes back to that ethical boundary we established earlier. Truth and sincerity. Indirection is a tool, like a scalpel. It can be used ethically or unethically.
Right.
If the prospect opens that Nightingale envelope, buys the program, and finds out the secret tool is just a flimsy pamphlet that says, think positive thoughts, then yes, that is profound manipulation. You failed the sincerity test.
You used a brilliant lockpick, but you didn't bring a gift. You just stole their money.
But if the product inside actually delivers on the promise, if it truly is a paradigm-shifting tool that billionaires demonstrably use...
And you did them a favor.
Exactly. You employed a deeply empathetic technique to help them drop their cynical guard. Because we are so jaded by marketing noise, we reflexively block out things that could actually help us. You're bypassing their self-defeating filters so they can access a real solution.
You're helping them get out of their own way. That is such a powerful reframe. So the practical takeaway is, when resistance is high, don't bang your head against the front door. Find a side window, present a puzzle, gently lead them to the truth of your product.
Yes, invite them into a story. Don't just demand compliance.
Let's tie all of this together. We've covered so much psychological ground today. The absolute soul of this deep dive, the core of the copywriter's challenge, is that true persuasion is never an act of war.
Never.
It's not about conquering an enemy. It is the thoughtful, respectful architecture of a relationship. It requires knowing your prospect intimately, doing the hard research, studying the losers so you truly understand them.
Respecting their intelligence.
Yes. Mapping your message to those 5 roadblocks. Never asking for a commitment before earning their trust. Avoiding those cheap jump scares and using sincerity and clever indirection to invite them into a conversation they actually want to have.
And if you can master that, you stop being just a marketer hunting for a quick buck. You become a trusted advisor. You build a long-term romance.
I love that.
But I do have a final forward-looking thought to leave you with.
Oh, please do.
Imagine you've done all of this perfectly. You crossed the room, delivered the indirect opening line, they lowered their defenses, and they opened the envelope. You won the battle of the front.
Step 1 complete.
But now, how do you make sure they don't instantly lose interest when they see the actual pitch? Keep thinking about how you sustain that magic, because the next step in the architecture is mastering the true seduction of the headline.
Oh man, the real work is just beginning. So listener, the next time you sit down to write an email or pitch a client, pause and look at your words. Marketing is human. It's emotion. So ask yourself, are you gearing up for a battle or are you preparing to fall in love?
I want you to visualize a really specific, almost totally unconscious moment in your daily routine. So it's the end of a long Tuesday.
Oh yeah, the worst day of the week.
Right, exactly. So you've just walked through your front door, you dropped your keys, and you are standing directly over your kitchen trash can.
Yep.
And in your hand is that stack of physical mail you just pulled from the mailbox. Or, you know, if you prefer the digital version, you're just staring at your inbox and your thumb is hovering over that bulk delete swipe.
Just waiting to nuke it all.
Exactly. Now, I want you to freeze time right there. Just look at what your brain is doing in that exact millisecond. You are basically engaged in this ruthless, high-speed sorting algorithm. It's like, keep trash, keep trash.
Yeah, your eyes are just darting around.
Right. The saccadic movements of your eyes are darting across those envelopes or those subject lines, and you are making monumental judgments in fractions of a second. I mean, you aren't opening them.
No, definitely not.
You aren't weighing the merits of whatever offer is inside. In an absolute flash of like heuristic processing. You just condemn a message to the garbage without a second thought. So what exactly triggered that execution?
Well, it is entirely, it's basically an exercise in threat detection and cognitive load management.
Yeah.
Your brain, in that exact moment, is operating on pure evolutionary autopilot.
Wow, evolutionary autopilot. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you are employing these incredibly sophisticated mental heuristics to protect your two most valuable resources, right? Your time and your attention. So you're subconsciously scanning the aesthetic, the typography, the phrasing, and the sender for any kind of deception or irrelevance or, demanding obligations.
Think someone asking you for a favor before they even say hi?
Exactly. The amygdala is essentially acting as a bouncer for your prefrontal cortex. If an envelope or an email subject line triggers even a microscopic alarm, like if it feels contrived, if it feels overly salesy, or if it feels like it's going to ask something of you without offering immense value in return,
Yeah.
that interaction is just violently terminated before it even begins.
Boom. Trash.
Right. Crashed immediately.
And that is the exact crucible we are stepping into today for this deep dive. Because for anyone out there operating a business or launching a product, or frankly, just trying to capture human attention in any way, those few split seconds over the trash can are where your entire enterprise basically lives or dies.
It's the ultimate choke point.
It really is. The words on the outside of the message, the visual presentation, what we call the envelope teaser, these aren't just, marketing assets. They're the ultimate gatekeeper to your customer's reality.
Yeah.
I mean, if you fail here, your world-changing product inside literally does not exist to them.
Precisely. And it's wild because we spend months, sometimes years, perfecting the product, right?
I know.
Or the service or the core offer. We build all these intricate back-end systems.
Oh, yeah, massive tech stacks.
Right. And then we just slap a rushed, completely derivative opening line on the front door and wonder why literally no one walks inside. The entire trajectory of a customer relationship is biologically predetermined by the exact nature of how you say hello.
So true. So today we are tearing down the architecture of that hello. We are extracting the core psychological frameworks from Michael Masterson's book, The Architecture of Persuasion, specifically focusing on the dark art of opening lines and the envelope teaser.
It's such a fascinating chapter.
It really is. And you are going to see exactly how master copywriters structure an opening so perfectly attuned to the reader's neurological desires that it practically forces them to look inside. And not with that familiar, weary suspicion we all have, but with a highly cultivated state of eager, positive anticipation.
Which is the holy grail.
The absolute holy grail. But to get there, I feel like we have to completely dismantle a paradigm that, frankly, ruins most businesses before they even send their first email.
You're referring to the linguistic framing we use, right?
Yeah.
Like when we talk about commerce in general.
I am. I mean, walk into any startup incubator or any corporate boardroom or marketing agency and ask yourself what the underlying philosophy is. It's always this idea that business is war. It's totally inescapable.
Oh, completely. It's everywhere.
We quote Sun Tzu's Art of War like it's a standard marketing textbook. We talk about capturing market share. We target consumers. We launch campaigns. We execute tactics to, penetrate new demographics and destroy the competition. The entire lexicon is totally militarized.
And the problem there is that language dictates behavior. If you operate within that business is war metaphor, you inevitably, and maybe it's subconsciously, but you inevitably adopt a mindset of conquest.
Right, you become a conqueror.
Exactly. If the market is a battlefield, then the prospect, your potential customer, is positioned as the adversary. They are this territory that you have to outsmart or overcome and basically force into surrender.
Which feels gross.
It does. You start viewing your copywriting as weapons of influence. Like they are designed to extract capital from their pockets and put it into yours. It just creates an inherently adversarial dynamic where you're trying to defeat their defenses.
Which brings us to the core thesis Masterson proposes here. He argues that viewing persuasion through the lens of a battlefield is exactly why most marketing fails that initial trash can test. Because the prospect can smell that adversarial intent a mile away.
Oh, humans are highly sensitive to that.
Right. So instead, Masterson demands that we view the act of business, and specifically the writing of direct response copy, as a romance. He says it is an extended, highly respectful romantic seduction.
Such a paradigm shift.
Huge shift. And he uses this brilliant extended metaphor to anchor the concept. He asks you to imagine that you are an archaeology professor. So picture this sophisticated, slightly rugged Indiana Jones type.
Okay, I can picture that.
Right. You are attending an exclusive evening event at the Explorers Society, and your singular goal is to start a meaningful long-term relationship with a fascinating woman you spot across the room.
And the psychological shift there is so profound when you apply it to how you write to a customer. When your goal is romance instead of war, the objective fundamentally transforms.
How so? Like on a practical level?
Well, you are no longer trying to conquer someone.
Right.
You are trying to discover a long-term partner. You're searching for someone you genuinely admire, someone whose life you actually want to improve, and someone you want to build a lasting mutual relationship with. And the tactics you need for a long-term partnership are the exact opposite of the tactics required for a military victory.
Okay, I want to stop and push back on this, though, because I know a lot of people listening to this are going to sense a contradiction right away.
Okay, lay it on me.
If we are talking about meticulously orchestrating our opening lines and analyzing the exact psychological triggers of our audience and engineering a very specific outcome, how is that not manipulation?
Oh, right.
I mean, Masterson even explicitly studies the techniques of pickup artists later in this framework, which we'll get to. But if I am using a manufactured opening line to seduce a prospect, isn't that just the business's war thing dressed up in a tuxedo? How do we balance strategic engineered persuasion with actual sincerity?
That is the most important tightrope a marketer can walk, honestly. And the distinction lies entirely in the underlying value and the long-term intent.
Break that down for me.
Let's look at the psychology of manipulation versus persuasion. So manipulation is basically structural deceit. It is tricking someone into taking an action that benefits you, but it's at their expense.
Okay.
If you lie to get someone to go on a date with you, or if you hide severe personality flaws just to get them to the altar, the relationship is fundamentally doomed the exact moment reality sets in. Right.
Yeah, because the foundation was a lie.
Exactly. In marketing terms, if you trick a customer into opening an envelope or you overpromise on a substandard product, sure, you might secure that short-term conversion. You get the one-night stand. But you permanently destroy the lifetime value of that customer. They will literally never trust you again.
Wow. Okay. So where does strategic persuasion fit in then, if we aren't just relying on raw, unfiltered authenticity?
Well, because pure, unfiltered authenticity is often incredibly ineffective.
Wait, really?
Yeah, think about our archaeology professor. Let's say he is a genuinely wonderful person, he's incredibly intelligent, and he would make an objectively fantastic partner.
Okay, a real catch.
A total catch. But out of this desire to be completely authentic and anti-strategic, he just sits in the corner of the Explorer Society party, staring at his shoes, just waiting for the woman to magically notice his intrinsic value.
Right, he does nothing.
He's doing a disservice to both of them. He has to understand social dynamics. He has to understand human psychology.
Yeah.
Strategic persuasion is merely the vehicle for delivering your sincerity effectively.
I love that phrasing, the vehicle for delivering sincerity.
Right. It is structuring the interaction so that your genuine value can actually be perceived and received by a skeptical brain.
Yeah.
You're basically helping the prospect overcome their own natural inertia and their defensive heuristics so they can benefit from what you have to offer.
That makes perfect sense. So every decision in your funnel has to basically answer a binary question, right? Like, will this copy help me love the customer or fool the customer?
Exactly that.
If you have a transformative product, using behavioral psychology to get them to experience it is an act of romance. But if your product is garbage, using those exact same psychological triggers is an act of war.
Spot on. And the romance part actually begins long before you ever speak your first word.
Okay, let's get back to our archaeology professor then. It's early in the evening, he's back in his flat, and he has to decide what to wear to this Explorer Society event. And this introduces a concept that I think severely trips up modern brands, what we call visual consistency, or what Masterson calls dressing the envelope.
Yes. Because in any human interaction, visual processing precedes verbal processing.
Always.
Before the woman at the party even hears the cadence of the professor's voice,
Right.
or, processes the syntax of his opening line, her visual cortex has already taken in his attire, his posture, his grooming.
Right. It happens instantly.
And that visual aesthetic creates an immediate subconscious anchor that frames literally everything he's about to say. In direct response marketing, this is the physical envelope itself.
Right. Like, what is its size? Is it a standard number 10 envelope or a massive 9x12? What is the paper stock? Is it cheap, glossy, heavy, textured?
What of the typography?
Yeah. Or translating this to the digital space, it's the sender name, the visual layout of the landing page, the UI of the email.
Right. And Masterson pulls a rule from a classic style book here. He says, clothes should reflect the event and the person you are.
Which makes sense.
So if our rugged, adventurous archaeology professor shows up to this society gathering in a pristine three-piece pinstripe Savile Row suit, he's sending a profoundly incongruent message.
It would feel like a costume.
Exactly. Conversely, if he shows up in board shorts, it completely violates the context of the event. He needs to wear something that authentically projects his specific archetype. So, perhaps a well-tailored tweed jacket with subtle leather patches.
Right, it has to match the vibe. And the failure to understand this visual congruency leads to a massive and honestly very expensive mistake that marketers make daily, especially the ones who think they are being super clever by elevating their brand aesthetic.
Oh, you mean the discount luxury mismatch?
Yes. I want to dig really deep into this because it violates common sense.
It really does.
I mean, the instinct for any business owner is to make their marketing look as premium, expensive, and high status as possible, completely regardless of what they're actually selling. We just assume that a beautiful, heavy, gold foil envelope raises the perceived value of the offer inside. So why does Masterson warn that this is essentially brand suicide?
Because of a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance.
Ah.
You have to analyze the mindset of the specific prospect you were targeting, right? Let's say your business model is built on high volume and low margins. You are selling a bulk set of utility tools at a massive 50% discount.
Okay, a real bargain offer.
Right, so your target audience is inherently budget conscious. They're hunting for a deal. Now, when that prospect pulls a heavy, cream-colored, textured cardstock envelope with embossed gold foil out of their mailbox, their subconscious threat detection system immediately flares up.
Why? What is the brain signaling in that moment?
The brain signals, wait, this is expensive. Whoever sent this spent an absolute fortune on the packaging alone. Therefore, their margins must be massive. Therefore, I'm going to overpay.
Oh, wow. That's so counterintuitive, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, the aesthetic contradicts the core promise of the offer. They feel intimidated and suspicious. As Masterson brutally summarizes it, if your core customer eats at McDonald's, make the envelope feel like a McDonald's wrapper, not a leather-bound menu at a high-end steakhouse.
I've seen this in digital marketing so often. You click an ad for a massive liquidation sale on software or some bundle of cheap digital assets, and the landing page looks like the corporate site for a Swiss wealth management firm.
With the tiny fonts and the negative space.
Exactly. Lots of negative space, tiny minimalist serif fonts, slow fading images. My brain instantly rejects the premise that I'm getting a bargain. If I am getting a dirt cheap deal, I almost want the landing page to look a little loud.
You expect it to be loud.
Right. I want big red text, urgency, a slightly crowded layout, because that visual noise signals utility and liquidation.
Exactly. Aesthetic consistency builds subconscious trust. When the visual medium perfectly matches both the price point and the prospect's comfort zone, it completely removes a layer of cognitive friction.
They don't have to think about it.
The prospect doesn't have to waste mental energy reconciling why a cheap utilitarian product is wearing expensive bespoke suit. You're speaking their visual language before you ever ask them to read a single word.
Okay, so the visual aesthetic is dialed in. Our professor is wearing the perfect tweed jacket. He arrives at the Explorers Society, he grabs a scotch, and he spots the woman across the room.
The moment of truth.
Now comes the moment of truth. He needs an opening line. He has to cross the room and actually speak. In our world, this is the printed teaser copy on the outside of the envelope, or like the first 6 words of an email subject line. And Masterson breaks the psychology of this moment into what he calls the 3 Ps of the envelope teaser.
Purpose, problem, and possibility.
Let's walk through those.
Sure. So the 3 Ps represent the hierarchy of copywriting goals, and they move from the most basic, functional requirement to the highest psychological achievement. Let's start at the bottom.
The first P.
Right. The first P is purpose. And the purpose of the envelope teaser is remarkably simple. It's just to get the envelope opened.
Right. Just like the purpose of the professor's opening line is simply to get the woman to turn her head and acknowledge his existence.
Exactly. But immediately, we hit a massive psychological roadblock, which brings us to the second P, the problem.
The trash can problem.
Yes, the problem is that getting them to actually open the envelope is incredibly difficult. Because as we established with that trash can scenario earlier, their default setting is rejection. The problem is overcoming those heuristic filters without resorting to extreme, deceitful bribes.
And this is exactly where that business as war mentality destroys relationships, isn't it?
Or absolutely. Because if a marketer believes that the only goal is the first P purpose, just getting the open the envelope, they will optimize for that metric at literally all costs.
I see this all the time.
You see it everywhere. They will print free cash inside, open immediately on the envelope. Or, even more nefariously, they will hijack the visual language of authority.
No, I hate that.
Right. They will design the mailer to look exactly like a certified IRS tax notice or a final disconnect warning from a utility company.
I get these constantly for my business. It drives me crazy. The envelope has that little tearaway edge on the side. It's printed on that thin security paper with the pattern on the inside. It says, "Final notice, respond within 24 hours" in bold black letters, and it even has a fake barcode on it.
It looks so official.
It does. My cortisol immediately spikes. I think I've missed a quarterly tax filing or something. I rip it open in an absolute panic, and it's a pitch for a predatory small business loan.
Okay, so let's analyze the neurochemistry of that exact moment.
Oh, that's sore.
They solved the purpose, right?
Yeah.
They got you to open the mail.
Oh, they definitely did.
They got a 100% open rate from you. But what happened the millisecond you realized you were deceived?
Oh, the relief immediately turns into pure venom.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't read the offer. I am actively looking for the name of the company so I can permanently blacklist them in my mind.
Precisely. They spiked your cortisol to get your attention. They totally violated your trust. It is the real-world equivalent of the professor walking up to the woman at the party, pointing at the ceiling and screaming, "The building is on fire."
Just to get her to look.
Just so she will look at him. And she looks at him, yes. The purpose is achieved. But the relationship is instantly and permanently terminated. You cannot start a romance by inducing panic or leveraging false greed. Extreme false promises destroy trust faster than any other mechanism in business.
Which means the true metric of success isn't the open rate at all. It's the psychological state of the prospect during the open.
Yes. And that is the third P. Possibility.
Possibility. Break that down.
Possibility is the holy grail of an A-level copywriter. The goal is not merely to get the envelope open, Law Honor. The goal is to get it open with a highly specific, carefully cultivated frame of mind. You want to generate a state of positive anticipation.
Positive anticipation.
Right. When that prospect slides their finger under the flap of the envelope, you want their internal monologue to be, "Wow, I really hope this is exactly what it looks like. This could be the solution I've been waiting for."
So you are basically predisposing them to be receptive. You are cultivating a desire to be sold before they even know the specifics of the offer. You never trick them. You just invite them into a possibility.
Exactly.
Now, this brings up one of the most fascinating statistical anomalies in direct response marketing. Because we are talking about crafting the perfect teaser copy to generate this possibility. But Masterson points out that very often, the most statistically successful opening line is actually saying nothing at all.
Yes. The blank envelope.
Enter the blank envelope strategy. Tell me about this.
The blank envelope is a really fascinating psychological lever. It is essentially the creation of an ersatz, or, imitation piece of personal first-class mail. You strip away all marketing copy, all branding, all logos from the outside of the envelope. It is just a standard white number 10 envelope. Super plain. The address might be laser printed in a font that mimics an old typewriter. There is either no return address at all, or maybe just a plain street address with no corporate name attached to it. And crucially, it uses a real, physical, lick-and-stick postage stamp, rather than one of those printed bulk mail meter marks.
It is the ultimate camouflage. I mean, when I am standing over the trash can doing my rapid-fire sorting, my brain categorizes the glossy mailers and the window envelopes as threats or trash. But the blank envelope totally bypasses the filter because it mimics the visual language of intimacy.
It looks personal.
It looks like a letter from my grandmother or a highly confidential note from a lawyer. My brain flags it as must open, and Masterson notes that statistically these blank envelopes pull incredibly high open rates.
Because they command attention through pure, unresolved curiosity.
Yeah.
But, and here is the critical nuance that separates the amateur marketers from the veterans. We just established that a higher open rate does not strictly equal a higher conversion rate, right?
Right. And honestly, I'm stuck on this. If slapping a plain white envelope in the mail is statistically proven to bypass the trash can filter almost every time, why are we even talking about teasers?
That's a fair question.
Why would a copywriter risk their ego, their time, and the client's budget writing an elaborate teaser when the blank envelope is this ultimate statistical safety net? It sounds like we're just making extra work for ourselves.
A very valid challenge, and the reality is that the blank envelope really is the baseline safety net. Like every great direct response campaign uses the blank envelope as the control in a split test.
Yeah.
But the reason you don't just stop there is because of that third P possibility. When a prospect opens a blank envelope, they have an incredibly high open rate, yes, but they open it with zero context. They're in a state of neutral curiosity, not positive anticipation.
They don't know what they're hoping for.
Exactly. And when they open it and realize it's a sales letter, there is almost always a micro moment of disappointment. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it wasn't a letter from an old friend, it's commerce.
So you have to overcome that initial letdown inside the letter itself.
Exactly. Masterson's rule, which has been forged over decades of millions of dollars in split testing, is basically this: a blank envelope will almost always beat a bad teaser.
Okay.
If your copy is weak, say nothing. Just let the blank envelope do the heavy lifting. But a truly great teaser, one that successfully cultivates positive anticipation, will mathematically obliterate a blank envelope in terms of final sales.
Wow, obliterate.
Yeah, a blank envelope gets them in the door. A great teaser gets them in the door with their credit card already in their hand. If you want to scale a business massively, you cannot rely solely on the camouflage of the blank envelope. You must do the hard work of writing a winning teaser.
Okay, so we are accepting the challenge. We are going to write a teaser. But how do we ensure we are writing a great one that beats the control and not a bad one that sends our mail straight to the landfill?
This is where we look at Bob Bly.
Right. Masterson leans on the categorization created by another legendary direct response mind, Bob Bly. And Bly breaks all teasers down into three fundamental categories: the narcissistic, the potential benefit, and the definite benefit. Let's role play these, starting with the absolute worst offender. Category 1, the narcissistic teaser.
The narcissistic teaser is entirely ego-driven. It is the company talking to itself in the mirror. So the envelope reads something like, "We make the best widgets in the world," or "Celebrating 50 years of award-winning excellence in community service." Right? It is entirely focused on the brand, its achievements, its history, its internal metrics. It completely and utterly ignores the existence, the desires, and the pain points of the actual reader.
To bring this back to our Explorers Society party, let's imagine what this actually sounds like in real human interaction. Our professor walks up to the woman he wants to seduce. He clears his throat and he says, "Hello. I have been redefining excellence in the field of archaeology for 15 years. I have published 3 peer-reviewed papers this quarter, and my synergy with the university board is operating at peak performance."
It is physically painful to listen to.
It really is.
The woman's immediate biological reaction is revulsion. She is looking for an exit strategy immediately. Why? Because human beings are fundamentally self-interested. She does not care about his peer-reviewed papers, just as the prospect over the trash can does not care about your 50th corporate anniversary.
Nobody cares.
Nobody. The prospect only cares about one thing: what can you do for me? Masterson actually redefines the concept of junk mail right here. He says junk mail is not defined by the postage class or the cheap paper it's printed on. Junk mail is simply any marketing copy that the reader instantly recognizes as self-serving.
Oh, that is so good. The moment the reader senses that the communication is about your goals and not their goals, it instantly becomes junk. Okay, so we kill the ego.
Right, kill the ego.
We shift to category 2, the potential benefit teaser. In the book, they use this classic envelope from Farmers Insurance as an example. The teaser copy simply says, "The middleman could save you $548 a year on your auto insurance."
Analyze the linguistic shift there. The spotlight is completely moved off the company and onto the reader.
Totally.
Farmers Insurance isn't talking about how many years they've been in business. They are offering a highly specific, tangible benefit, $548.
Yeah.
But it is framed through a lens of potentiality. Could save you.
It's a very safe, hardworking approach, right? Because anyone who pays for car insurance is naturally going to feel a little twinge of curiosity, like, wait, am I overpaying by $500? It introduces a potential future reality where the prospect's life is just slightly better.
It works, absolutely. But it lacks the visceral punch of immediacy, which is exactly why Bob Bly says the highest converting of the standard teasers is category 3, the definite benefit.
The definite benefit.
This is the hyper-direct approach. You're promising a direct, immediate, and guaranteed benefit the exact second they open the envelope, not somewhere down the line in a theoretical future.
Yeah.
The most basic example is, enclosed is your free widget.
But the absolute masters of the definite benefit don't just give away free physical trinkets. They give away immediate intellectual gratification. I want to talk about Gene Schwartz here because he weaponized the definite benefit using a technique called fascinations.
Oh man,
They're
fascinations.
the best.
Fascinations are arguably the most powerful tool in a copywriter's arsenal. They are essentially highly engineered, hyper-specific bullet points that tease the proprietary information contained inside the package. And Schwartz would literally cover the outside of an envelope with them.
What do they look like?
They look like this inside. The single common household spice that naturally lowers blood pressure. See page 12. Or the bizarre legal loophole that allows you to travel first class for the price of coach, revealed on page 47.
The psychology of the page number is just staggering to me. Adding see page 12 completely changes the reality of the claim.
It anchors it in reality.
Yes. It's no longer this vague marketing promise. It's a physical coordinate. It proves the answer exists. And it creates what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect, an open loop in the brain.
Yes, the open loop.
The human mind hates uncompleted tasks. Once I read that there is a spice on page 12 that lowers blood pressure, my brain starts itching. I literally have to know what it is. Is it cinnamon? Is it turmeric? I cannot throw the envelope away until I close the loop.
Exactly. The definite benefit being offered isn't just the health outcome down the road. The immediate benefit is the dopamine hit of satisfying that burning curiosity right now. You're promising the prospect that the mere physical act of opening the envelope will be instantly intellectually rewarding.
Okay, so the overarching rule for the baseline teaser is pretty clear. Frame your opening line entirely around what the prospect gets, either potentially or immediately. Never talk about yourself. But, and this is a really massive but,
Okay, lay the butt on me.
if I am selling to a highly sophisticated, deeply cynical audience, let's say Wall Street traders or seasoned entrepreneurs or doctors, even a brilliantly written definite benefit is going to trigger their BS detector. If a hedge fund manager reads how to make a 400% return on page 12, they don't get curious. They roll their eyes.
They've seen it a million times.
Right. They know exactly what is happening. They know they are being pitched. So how do you get past a gatekeeper who is hyper aware of the gate?
Okay, this is where we graduate to the absolute masterclass. When you are dealing with a high-resistance, highly skeptical audience, any direct promise of a benefit triggers what we can call the I'm being sold alarm in the amygdala.
The alarm goes off.
The exact moment they realize it's a sales pitch, the prefrontal cortex shuts down reception and actively begins cross-examining your claims. To bypass this, Masterson introduces Idea 6, which is a concept pioneered by Bill Bonner, the founder of Agora, the strategy of indirection.
Indirection. The ultimate weapon.
Yes. Indirection is the art of bypassing the sales alarm entirely by refusing to make a direct promise. Instead, you raise a provocative question, or you introduce a bizarre contradiction, or you bring up a topic that the prospect is already inherently fascinated by.
You come at it sideways.
Exactly sideways. You engage their intellect on a tangent, you lower their guard through sheer curiosity, and then, very slowly and elegantly, you pivot that established interest toward your actual sales argument.
This is where Masterson brings that pickup artist analogy to its most practical application. He specifically references the controversial yet psychologically fascinating methodology of the pickup artist known as mystery.
Yes, mystery.
So if we look at the evolutionary psychology of how mystery approaches a group of women in a bar, it perfectly mirrors the strategy of indirection. If mystery sees a woman he wants to talk to, he absolutely does not walk up and use a definite benefit teaser. He doesn't walk up and say, "You are beautiful, I am wealthy, let me buy you a drink."
Because that triggers the immediate social defense alarm. The woman's brain immediately registers, this is a transaction, he is hitting on me, what does he want? The walls go up instantly.
Right. So instead, mystery uses an indirect opener. He walks up, looking seemingly distracted, and asks a question that appears to have absolutely nothing to do with romance or seduction.
Right.
He might say, "Hey, I only have a second, but I need a female perspective on something. I wonder if you could help me settle a debate I'm having with my friend over there." And then he presents a slightly controversial, highly engaging social scenario.
And look at the psychological mechanics of what happens next. The defense alarm never goes off. Why? Because she isn't being pitched. She is being consulted.
Ooh, consultant.
Yes. This triggers a variation of the Ben Franklin effect. By asking for a small favor in this case, her intellectual opinion, he engages her prefrontal cortex. Her critical defensive faculty drops because she is focused on solving the puzzle he just presented. She literally leans into the conversation. Only much later, Once rapport and authority and genuine interest are established, does the interaction pivot toward a romantic nature?
The sheer genius of indirection is that you are getting the prospect to say yes to a conversation long before you ever ask them to say yes to a transaction. You are just getting them into the room.
That's the whole game.
Masterson gives a phenomenal real-world marketing example of this from Nightingale Conant, which is a major publisher of personal development and wealth-building programs. So they wanted to sell an audio program on wealth creation. The amateur move would be a direct benefit, right? Like buy our new program and learn how to get rich.
Which triggers the I'm being sold alarm.
Yeah.
Right. Another get-rich-quick scheme.
Exactly. So Nightingale Conant used indirection instead. The envelope didn't mention an audio program at all. The teaser simply read in massive letters, "N.O. One We Gets Rich Without It." But with it, people achieve the impossible. And right below that, it listed highly recognizable avatars of extreme wealth. It said, Donald Trump admits he needs one. Bill Gates has one. Now, stripping away any modern political context and just looking at those names purely as the business avatars they represented when this was originally mailed, look at what that does to the reader's brain.
It creates an irresistible cognitive dissonance. The prospect looks at this, and their brain says, wait, what do these drastically different billionaires have in common that I don't know about? What is the it? Is it a tax shelter? Is it a daily habit? Is it a specific type of legal trust? The copywriter is leveraging the pre-existing cultural status of those figures to validate a mystery.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Why does making the reader guess work better than just telling them what it is? If the product is an audio program on wealth, aren't we making the reader work too hard by forcing them to solve a riddle? Why not just say, discover the secret wealth-building mindset?
Because of how the human brain processes claims versus how it processes mysteries.
Okay.
When you say, discover the secret wealth-building mindset, you are making a declarative claim. You are telling them what you have. And human beings naturally rebel against being told what to think. They immediately cross-examine the claim. I bet it's just positive thinking nonsense. I bet it won't work for me.
Right. They argue with you.
But when you use indirection, Bill Gates has one, you aren't making a claim they can argue with. You are presenting a puzzle. And human beings are biologically hardwired to hate unresolved puzzles. The biological drive to know the secret entirely overpowers their skepticism.
As Bill Bonner famously noted, a prospect convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. If you force a benefit down their throat, they will resist it. But if you provoke them into feeling curious and they step forward to solve the mystery on their own volition, they become a committed participant in the sales process. You don't tell them what to feel, you provoke them into thinking for themselves.
It is the ultimate form of respect for the prospect's intelligence, which ties perfectly back to the romance metaphor, right? You are treating them as an intellectual equal.
Okay, so let's bring all of this together in our Explorers Society metaphor. You are the professor. You wore the perfect tweed jacket visual consistency. You approached the woman you admire. You didn't boast about yourself, and you didn't awkwardly proposition her. You used an indirect opening line.
Smooth.
Very smooth. You pulled out a weathered piece of parchment and asked her if she could help you identify a strange dialect on a map you found. It worked flawlessly. You bypassed her defenses, you engaged her intellect, and you had a fascinating conversation. The romance is alive. She actually agrees to leave the party with you to go see a rare collection of Peruvian amulets you have back at your house.
Boom. You have successfully navigated the envelope teaser, you got the open, and you got it with positive anticipation.
Right, so you walk her to your vintage Land Rover, you drive to your house, you walk up the steps, put the key in the front door, and turn the lock. And this brings us to the final and perhaps most easily bungled concept of the chapter.
Transitioning to the headline.
Yes, transitioning to the headline and the absolute mandate of emotional consistency.
This is the moment of truth in any marketing funnel. You are transitioning from the outside of the envelope to the inside. In the physical world, the prospect has ripped the envelope open and is pulling out the sales letter. In the digital world, they've clicked the brilliantly crafted email subject line, the browser is spinning, and the landing page is loading.
Metaphorically, you are opening your front door and inviting your romantic interest to step across the threshold into your home.
And the psychological rule here is unbreakable. What she sees the exact millisecond that door opens must perfectly, flawlessly confirm the expectations you set back at the party.
Masterson uses a visceral, almost hilarious example of how this goes wrong. Imagine you invite this sophisticated, intelligent woman home to examine ancient Peruvian antiquities. She steps through your front door, and your house is a dilapidated frat house.
Oh, no.
There are crushed, cheap beer cans all over the floor, a neon beer sign buzzing on the wall, and the overwhelming smell of stale pizza. What happens to her psychological state in that moment?
It is instantaneous psychological whiplash. The expectancy violations theory kicks in hard. The environment completely and aggressively contradicts the persona you projected at the party. In a fraction of a second, she realizes she has been subjected to a bait and switch.
Yep.
She realizes the tweed jacket and the map were just a mask.
Mm-hmm.
All of her social defenses slam back down, stronger than ever, and she is literally running for her car.
The inside of the house must match the promise made at the bar. In copywriting terms, this means the main headline at the very top of your sales letter must visually, thematically, and emotionally replicate the exact teaser you used on the outside of the envelope.
It seems obvious when you say it like that, but Masterson insists on dedicating a whole section to this because highly intelligent copywriters constantly outsmart themselves right here.
How so?
Well, the creative process usually involves brainstorming 20 or 30 different envelope teasers. The copywriter eventually narrows it down to the two absolute best ideas, and they fall in love with both of them.
Ah, I see where this is going.
So they make a fatal compromise. They decide to use their favorite idea on the outside of the envelope and their second favorite idea as the headline on the inside of the letter. They justify it by thinking, oh, I'll hit them with two completely different psychological angles. If the first one didn't fully sell them, the second one will.
And it destroys the entire campaign because it breaks the emotional spell. If your envelope teased a dark, secretive government conspiracy regarding gold prices, and the prospect opens it in a state of paranoid curiosity, and then the letter inside features a bright, cheerful headline about, like, 5 sunny ways to make quick cash from your living room, the cognitive dissonance is deafening. The reader suddenly remembers, oh, right, this isn't a secret dossier, I'm just reading an advertisement. The spell is broken.
The transition must be completely seamless. Masterson highlights a legendary, highly successful package from the Health Sciences Institute to prove this. The envelope teaser was dark, conspiratorial, and heavy. It read, "Forbidden cures, proven natural treatments the medical establishment won't let you have."
A total masterclass in indirection and possibility.
Exactly. And when the prospect eagerly ripped open that envelope, they found a thick bookalog inside. The cover of that bookalog didn't use a different angle, it said, in the exact same font, using the exact same color scheme, "Forbidden Cures." All right. Furthermore, both the outside envelope and the inside bookalog featured the exact same graphic of a heavy metal padlock wrapped in chains. The visual motif, the phrasing, and the emotional resonance of paranoia and discovery were mirrored perfectly.
It confirms the hope. The reader opened the envelope, hoping to gain access to forbidden cures, and the very first thing their brain processes upon opening it confirms, yes, you are safe, you are in the right place. Here are the forbidden cures. Contrast this with a package Masterson dissects that failed miserably for a magazine called American Craft.
Oh, this one hurts.
It really does. The envelope used a very elegant, soft, philosophical quote for its teaser. It said, "Behind everything, fine art, design, products, there are stories of how they came to be."
A very contemplative, high-status intellectual teaser. It sets a very specific, quiet mood.
Right. You open that envelope expecting a quiet, intellectual conversation. But the headline on the letter inside screamed in bold, aggressive red text, "We've been defining and redefining craft for well over 60 years. Get 6 issues for only $20.
That is the frat house. The reader was invited into a museum for a philosophical discussion on the origins of human art, and they stepped through the door to find a used car salesman shouting a discount at them through a megaphone. The emotional tone shifted from contemplative to transactional in a millisecond. The package failed, not because the product was bad, but because it broke trust at the threshold.
So the absolute non-negotiable rule for anyone writing a funnel is discipline. Never, ever waste a second-best teaser as your main headline if it changes the emotional tone. The headline inside must perfectly catch the baton passed by the envelope outside. If you wore the Explorer gear to the party, your living room better have some damn artifacts in it.
It is entirely about reassuring the subconscious mind. You are telling the prospect's amygdala, you are safe. I am exactly who I said I am. The journey we started on the outside is continuing seamlessly on the inside.
This has been an incredibly dense, layered exploration of behavioral economics and the psychology of first impressions. So let's synthesize these concepts. When we pull back and look at the totality of Masterson's architecture of persuasion regarding the envelope teaser, what is the ultimate truth tying all of this together? We've covered the romance metaphor, the visual cognitive dissonance of dressing the envelope, the 3 Ps, Bob Bly's categories, the evolutionary hack of indirection, and emotional consistency. What is the soul of this chapter?
The overarching unifying insight is this: the opening line, your envelope teaser, your subject line, your first visual impression. It is not a mechanical lever. It is not a cheap trick you deploy just to hack an algorithm, or artificially inflate an open rate, or force a quick, dirty conversion.
It's so much deeper than that.
It is a highly delicate, deeply psychological first impression in what you are hoping will be a long-term, mutually beneficial seduction. Whether you choose the statistical camouflage of a blank envelope, the immediate gratification of a definite benefit, or the masterful curiosity loop of an indirect question, your ultimate goal is profound.
You're asking for permission.
Yes. You are attempting to transition a human being out of their busy, guarded, highly skeptical reality and gently guide them into your reality, armed not with suspicion, but with an attitude of eager, positive anticipation. You are asking for permission to start a relationship.
You are asking them to trust you just enough to step out of the cold, cross the threshold, and stand in the foyer of your house. And as we've learned today, getting them into that foyer without triggering their alarms is an absolute art form. But let's look ahead for a second. You've successfully approached them, you wore the right clothes, you said the perfect indirect opening line, you invited them inside your world without breaking the emotional spell. They are standing in your foyer. What happens next?
Well, the foyer is merely the introduction. Now, you have to actually deliver the substance.
Exactly. In our next deep dive, we are going to explore the highly precarious transition from the foyer into the living room. Masterson calls this the sales argument. We're going to dissect how you prove your boldest claims, how you build an airtight, logical case for your product, and how you sustain that emotional high without losing the magic of the initial seduction.
It's the exact moment where the poetry of the opening line has to be backed up by the undeniable reality of proof.
It is going to be a masterclass in logic and emotion. But before we go, I want to leave you with a completely different paradigm to chew on. Throughout this entire hour, we have talked exclusively about human psychology. We've talked about human heuristics, the human amygdala, human cognitive dissonance, and the human act of standing over a trash can sorting mail. But I want you to think about where technology is heading in the next 3 to 5 years. What happens when the gatekeeper is no longer human?
Oh, wow. You're talking about algorithmic sorting.
I am talking about AI agents. Soon, we aren't going to be the ones reading our promotional emails or scanning our bulk mail. We are going to have personalized AI assistants that pre-sort our inboxes, ruthlessly optimizing for our time. And an AI doesn't have an amygdala. An AI doesn't care about the Ben Franklin effect, and it certainly doesn't care about the romance metaphor.
It just cares about utility.
Right. So the provocative question is, will strategies like indirection and possibility still work when the gatekeeper is a large language model? Or will the entire architecture of persuasion have to be rebuilt from the ground up to seduce machines instead of humans? Think about that the next time you write a subject line. Until next time.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.